Yeah, I don't see a difference here. Do you? Finally, Ginka and Luna is dead. The latest casualty in Shonen Jump's massacre of manga, Ginka and Luna only lasted 29 chapters before it finally ended. And you know what? I'm not surprised. There were so many flaws with this manga. And you better fucking believe I'm going to get into many of them. Ginka and Luna had many good ideas, but the series either moved way too fast or had very deflating ends to many of its battles, thus destroying any of the stakes that the mangaka set, or tied up its plot points very poorly. As I mentioned in my last video, Ginka and Luna as characters had a bit of intrigue, and while the art was fine, their character design set them back, and ultimately there was no real character growth from either of them. And I'm sure the mangaka picked up on this too when he started throwing an assortment of other characters that we could care even less about as a means to expand the cast and add interest and intrigue to this world. Locke was a character that tried to fill a void that wasn't there. Luna was already playing the Lancer role in this series. By having Locke tag along, it made Luna redundant in her own story. There's nothing wrong with having a main character who isn't the strongest in the series, especially in the early chapters, but when you introduce power creep into your series so early, you start eliminating all of the characters who were introduced as weak, and Luna eventually becomes a supporting character in her own manga. All of this is done before we even finish the second volume. So yeah, the writing kinda sucked, but the character design was a large contributing factor as to why this shit got canned. You can never take Genka seriously because he always has the same expression. Why didn't Shinpei Watanabe take artistic liberties that manga grants an artist and give Ginka the occasional goofy face? Full Metal Alchemist pulls this off well. I can take Al seriously. However, if he was an expressionless suit of armor for the entire series, I don't think he would have been as much of an endearing character as he is. And I definitely felt that sort of detachment towards Ginka. There were like 4 final bosses towards the end of the manga. All of them stank worse than a Brighton influencer, so I don't really care for any of them that were introduced. It's just interesting to see the mangaka try his best to pivot the series, but the fate of this manga was spelled from maybe like chapter 5 or 6. The stakes were never consistent. There were times that the magic was so phenomenal, it was super catastrophic as well. You would see it hit the user, and there would be some like immediate body horror. Their arm would splice open, their eyes would turn into explosives. There was maiming, there was shock value, but then a few pages later, they would be fine. Shonen has matured. You can scar or maim your main characters like Kaku, Rui, or Gege does, but with Genka and Luna, the slate gets wiped after each battle. The lack of commitment killed any sort of excitement that this manga was building towards. It all feels like a badly inspired Rave Master clone. Geez, and the ending fucking sucked. It was somber, it was open-ended, and that's cool, because we don't know if Ginka was able to retrieve the rest of the mini versions of himself. But then it came to me after I finished the manga. The fact that that particular plot point held very little significance in the middle parts of this story goes to show that the main motivation for Luna and Ginka was never important. Young writers should routinely subtract MacGuffins from their story and see if it's able to stand up on its own. If it is, if there's no real change to the motivations of the character, more than likely that MacGuffin is a bad plot point that your story doesn't need. And I feel like the focus on that took away so much of the potential that Ginka and Luna had in the early chapters. You didn't know what Luna was fighting towards because nothing felt like it was leading towards finding the missing pieces of Ginka. And it's because of all of the aforementioned reasons why I feel that Luna's dead mother being shoehorned in at the end was not needed. In fact, I thought it was a really shit move to add some sort of emotional motivation for Luna learning magic. I thought she wanted to see the world. No, she really wanted to res her dead mom? I don't know. If you ask me, if that was her main point with wanting to see the world, you could have had a much darker, more intriguing story from the jump. But yet again, the mangaka doesn't understand what's important in telling a shonen story. And the memory loss thing was also pretty cringe. But you know what? I'm gonna come out and say it. Most everyone was tiptoeing around the topic for the manga's duration, but I'll say it. You cannot have an ugly female character be the focus of a non-gag manga. You just can't. You cannot have a female that is terminally flat be the main character of a shonen manga. You cannot. There is a lot to be said, not only about the male gaze in manga, but depictions of females and fan service in the shonen demographic. However, Ginka and Luna was not the right manga to challenge those expectations. The mangaka pushed so hard against what a female lead can look like. While that's admirable, Luna looked ugly as fuck. Her outfit did not fit her figure did not match her frame. No human being looks like this, and other characters in this manga didn't suffer from a concave chest. I assure you, give Luna even a bit of sex appeal, this manga would still be alive today. The mangaka has a lot of potential, but fantasy is not their forte. I think this was a Hail Mary attempt at creating a witch hat or Frieren for Weekly Shonen Jump. But Ginka and Luna lacked what makes those series so successful. A snail's pace, played straight, traditional fantasy with a focus on the journey, not the magic, nor the conflict. And their art styles are riveting. Ginka and Luna, meanwhile, lacked charm, patience, and attractiveness. It never stood a fucking chance. I wonder what manga is gonna get cancelled next. God, the industry is in such a weird place right now.